Hello and welcome to Counterpressed on The Ringer and Spotify. On today's show, we're joined by Nikki Doucet, Chief Executive of WSL Football. We talk all the latest in the league's partnerships, PFA, Nike, Apple. We also talk about 12 p.m. kickoffs, league expansion, league investment, and of course, VAR. Nikki Doucet, welcome to Counterpressed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are you finding our lovely sofa set and everything?
It's amazing. I feel like I also wore the right colors.
Yes.
So I feel very excited about that.
Very much color coded.
I have a couple of the things that you have in behind us, so I feel
it's a Kate Longhurst West Ham shirt. That's what you got.
I was like, she's got a Flaherty shirt.
Exactly. But no, I love it.
Nikki's got the Gilly Flaherty shirt in her living room, pride of place on the wall, and I know you're admiring our Ellie the elephant as well.
I was, yes. I love Ellie.
Yeah,
I think she's an icon. So I wish I could dance like her personally, but I'm working on it.
And
that is something I would watch at the Subway Cup final.
Exactly. That's the new halftime show. That's one of the innovations. No, I'm totally joking.
Coming in hot with a big question, actually. Are we going to see any Ellie-type WSL football mascots in our future? Is there an interesting design on the cards? Because I know no one can beat Ellie. That's the gold standard of mascots, and everyone wishes they invented an Ellie. But is there a chance we could get a WSL mascot anytime soon?
Who knows? I think Ellie's interesting though, but at a club level, at a team level, and connecting with the local community and what's right for them. So never say never.
Okay, all right. That's not a no. So maybe if we want to get our designs in soon. It's really great to have you with us, and I know there's been so much to talk about over the last sort of 2 years now. But I wanted to start by talking about sort of how you came into this role, because a lot of fans may not know kind of what you were working on before you actually became chief executive.
I grew up in Canada playing sports, so I would have considered myself an athlete. So I played what I would have called soccer, but obviously don't call that now. And basketball was one of my main sports too. I worked in finance and investment banking in Toronto and New York. Then I changed careers and worked at Nike in Portland, Oregon. And then I moved over here because my family is English. And so I moved over here 10 years ago working with Nike. So I would have been, my main job there was being the head of the women's business for the UK and Ireland. So that was also ahead of the 2019 World Cup, which at that time was a lot of firsts in the women's game. And that's where I got to know, I suppose, the consumer here, the market, the sports industry here. I was surprised when I first moved here how behind the sports landscape was for women versus what I had grown up with. And that's where I got to know the FA, the Lionesses. We onboarded Tottenham and Chelsea at that time during Nike. And then I left, and then a friend of mine sent me the job for chief executive of the Women's Super League, so I went for it. Mm-hmm. And I became the preferred candidate, but then they said, actually, the job doesn't exist yet because the company doesn't exist yet. So would you consider joining as a consultant and work with the clubs and the FA to figure out what this new company could look like and what the governance would look like, with no guarantee that you'll be the CEO? And I said, sure. So I worked with the clubs, with the FA, with the team that was working on it for, I guess, a year and a half or so, and to go through what really is an M&A process and trying to get 24 or 23 different clubs plus the FA to sign all the same legal documents to set up the company. And then, NewCo, then WPLL, now WSL Football, was born 15, 16 months ago. And here we are.
A lot has happened in that time, especially start of this season, because there's been loads of new partners, but there's also been a lot of actual sort of organisational change and logistical change from a league and club standpoint and player standpoint. So let me know if I've missed any, but we've got the WSL 2 coming into PFA, which has been a long-awaited change for a lot of players and clubs and coaches who've been pushing for that, and agents as well. We have the Nike kit and equipment partnership. We have the new wage sort of rules and minimum wage requirements in WSL2 and WSL. We have Apple partnership, which is a sort of tech equipment for clubs and coaches. What else have I missed? British Gas partnership.
Gas, new media deals.
Yeah.
So when I started, 99% of the revenue was not contracted for the league. So yeah, 2 new media deals. Barclays is actually a new deal. Drinking in the Bowl trials.
Oh,
Yeah. Famously, the alcohol trial, which I think, by all accounts, has been going really well. I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah. When we've spoken to fans and clubs, I mean, what, from your point of view, how have you found it?
I think what we've received is all positive so far. I mean, obviously it's a trial and testing things, but to have, I suppose our biggest trial so far with the Arsenal-Chelsea match with 56,000 people, and so far we haven't seen anything that we need to change. I think it's just continuing to provide people with choice, and then also how each of the grounds, depending on the size of the crowd or the type of ground, are there pockets of how the fans are segmented within the ground and what that looks like, and making sure everybody has a space that they feel comfortable in.
In terms of, the process to get up to this point, what have been kind of the challenges you've encountered, and I guess, what are you maybe like most proud of being able to do to get to here? Because I feel like from maybe the outside perspective, it's felt like quite bumpy at points. Even like things like the name changes of the company feel like they've kind of come across, it kind of comes across as being like, oh, what's going on over here? So I guess, it obviously has been a complicated process. I'd be interested to hear from you sort of, what you feel like the biggest challenges you've had to overcome are.
I still think the biggest challenge we're overcoming is perception, of women's sport, and constantly having to prove yourself to the people to invest in it. And at times that feels, I can see it, but you're still trying to prove to bring on the right partners in the right way. The owners, the clubs, making sure that there's the right investment, and we're on an investment journey. We're at a very early stage of development and the professionalization and the next phase of growth for the game, and making sure we have the right commitment, and there's been some bumps on certain clubs, obviously, in the past, who have chosen not to invest. And I've talked directly personally to parents of some of the kids in the academies and what they've gone through, talking to players, and just the PFA, for example, the benefits for the WSL2 players, that's been 2 years in the making. And I feel so proud of my team in particular. Some people that have worked in the women's game for 20, 30 years and have seen the growth. And when you listen to their stories, plus the people who are now coming in, and the passion that everyone feels for this, and I feel like we feel a deep sense of responsibility to pay it forward, to respect what's happened before us, and listening to their stories around just the fight to play, and that is part of the story. But the next journey is going to be what was right before. We'll have to may not necessarily be the right strategy going forward to continue to grow in the right way. But I think our team, I feel just very proud, and in particular, just going back to the benefits for the WSL2 players. Like 2 years ago, my COO, Holly, and I spoke. We were on a Zoom call with one of the players in one of our, at the time, championship clubs that's no longer in the championship anymore. And it was a really emotional call, and how she was trying to explain to us, her challenges and what she was going through, and how she was trying to represent the voice of all of those players in that league. And, us in our position wanting to change it immediately, knowing what she's going through, knowing what we want to have happen. And it took 2 years from that phone call to make that happen. And so the fight and determination to still make the right things happen is hard. It takes time. It's more complicated at times than I want it to be. But we got there. And so for me, that's probably one of the most proudest moments I have, in particular of my team and in particular of Holly, and also working with the PFA and their team and how hard they fought too. I think that's a really important moment. And I hope that then those players really feel the benefit off the back of that. And for us to have 2 professional leagues, to be the only country in the world to have that, is a massive competitive advantage for us. We are providing more employment opportunities for the entire industry. And we are the market leaders in this, and we're an emerging category in some ways that is changing perception globally of women's football. And I think that I feel there's more to do, but I do feel very proud of the team for that one in particular.
You mentioned the investment as well, and I know obviously with the arrangement with the loan from the Premier League, and before the WSL was broken away from the FA, there was always this conversation about, would the Premier League be the sort of main investor? Would another sort of private equity investor come along? What's the latest on the league potentially getting external investment in the league as an entity, not just obviously the clubs who are obviously taking on a lot more investment?
Yeah, I think we've taken the last 15 months to figure out what does it cost to actually run a league. We're going from being a cost center within the governing body to a standalone for-profit entity that runs not just one league, 2 leagues, the Subway League Cup and the Academy Cup. And we operate with the expectation that we can operate like the Premier League because we have those brands in our league, but probably on a fifth of the budget. And so we're being really thoughtful around what's required to run the league. What do we have to invest in? So when we think about, we still have to raise the game. So when you think about the investment in the talent pathway, referees, coaching, supporting managers right now, obviously the players, the rest of the staff, when you think of the performance staff and upskilling and the education required to have performance staff for a female athlete, there's a lot of investment to continue to raise the game that's required. And then we have to grow the game and it's a an interlinking circle, if you will, that we need more fans, that we need better fan experiences at more of the clubs, and bring more people into the game that allows us to continue to invest in everything else that we need to invest in. Because that there's just been historic underinvestment in the women's game. And so those are the 2 things that we're really focused on, and we're trying to figure out what's required to do that. And for any business that has massive ambition, we're trying to do it in a responsible, thoughtful way. And we have to go through the right checks with all of our clubs and our governance structure to make sure we're making good decisions going forward.
And the fan experience, one of the things that's come up a lot this season, because it's been a big change, is the scheduling, the 12 p.m. kickoffs, which obviously from a broadcast perspective, and obviously I spend some time on that side of things as well, it's trying to build this appointment to view, getting everyone sitting down, what time the games are going to be. But obviously for a lot of fans, there's frustration around 12 p.m. being early, making it hard to get there, travel pressures, games also being on at the same time, so you can't necessarily watch all of them. From the league perspective, what is the sort of theory behind the 12 p.m. kickoffs? And also, are you seeing the benefits when it comes to TV viewership as well?
Yes. So I feel like I'm also going to be giving you long answers because it's so complex. So there is a lot of thought behind it. Would I say it's perfect? No, but we are seeing benefits from it. So I think the first step is we do need an appointment to view. We need to create habit, and we need to make it easier for the fans. We heard a lot of feedback that the 12:45 kickoff on a Sunday night wasn't great for fans.
The 6:45.
Sorry, what did I say?
12:45. But I know what you mean.
6:45. Yes.
6:45 evening one.
You can tell.
Yeah.
I still need more coffee.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't give Nikki enough coffee this morning.
Sorry, 6:45 wasn't a great kickoff, and then there's the complexity of which broadcast slots we actually have based on the domestic market and what's been sold for men's football, both Premier League and EFL. Then we have the additional complexity of not having stadium primacy. So if we had stadium primacy more, I think there's more ownership of what time slots we can play in. 3 p.m. on a Saturday is not an option for us at the moment, and we worked really hard to try and see if that was an option. We also have a lot of... Are
you still pushing for that as well at the moment for the 3 p.m?
So I think we should continue to explore what that can look like, but it's not in our control. And but I do think that is a slot. If it was for the women's game and we could make it just for the women's game, would be a great time slot. Because when we look at the data also of grassroots football, the majority of girls' grassroots football across the country is actually played on Saturday mornings, not on Sunday mornings. So that was also a consideration as we were looking through what's available. The 12 p.m. slot on a Sunday right now, there is impact on the travel times. It's not 100% perfect. But the other thing what we're seeing is actually we have created more opportunities to watch more football. And so every single club this season has been on Sky Sports at least twice, whereas last season, not every club had been on TV yet. And so we are seeing, I think we're testing the multi-view, which has also been, I think, an interesting
test. I'm a big multi-view fan. I don't know. I'm multi-view hardcore, but no one else has been as into it as me.
I think it's hard because the multi-view element is like, on the one hand, it can be fun, but it's this idea, which I think can be a little overblown, but I get where it comes from, because last year, obviously, there was lots of games at Sunday at 2:00. But maybe this feeling of if there's 4 games on at once, okay, you can watch them all on little screens, but it's not the same as having that feeling of like big build up. And maybe it feels like, and this might not even just be a perception thing, that it feels like there are less of those sort of build up slot games, as it were, whereas maybe last year there was something on a Friday night or a Saturday lunchtime and then a early Sunday and a late Sunday, so you're getting sort of those 3 distinct slots. This at points this season it's felt like there's maybe only like 2 of those kind of thing.
Jill, what have you made of the changes this season from a broadcast point of view? Now you're working on games as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's been welcomed as such. I think I liked it where it was a bit, if you had like a Friday night game, especially if you're a viewer as such, like I don't have a team, so I don't go to watch. If I was just like an out Chelsea fan, for example, then it probably wouldn't really necessarily interest me to watch all the other games. And I think that's what some other people forget. I think whenever do you really get the chance, you think in the men's football, you can't watch more than one game at once. In the men's football, a lot of them kick off at the same time. But I think it's because the women's league is small, then people argue that case of where all 4 games, whatever, are kicking off at 12, we ain't able to watch them all. But you wouldn't really argue that as such in the men's game. But I like it. I mean, the 6:45 kickoff was hard, especially if you're working on it, because also
from a player perspective, right? No, I don't think many players like the 6:45 either.
No, because you're basically, when our used to play it was I'm ready for bed. Like, in all honesty, like I'll go to bed early, and then it's all about your eating and stuff like that. I preferred. If I was playing now, I would love the early kickoff.
The 12 p.m.
I would love it, because I think I'd get up, I'd really only have my breakfast, and then probably something else a little maybe beforehand. But it's like 2:00. It's difficult because then you're meeting at 12:30. But I might be up from like 8. So then I'm eating breakfast. Not even things like that in regards to food. And also you're done at 12 and then get the rest of the day.
I also think what WSL is, and also you guys know this from the insight you've got, is that the WSL is quite a star-driven league. It's a lot of it is either the big international players or the Lionesses, right? So there are a lot more fans who do want to watch everything because they're fans of the whole league and individual players, not necessarily the club loyalties that you mentioned on the men's game, right? Obviously, I work in football. I'm a big football fan, so I will probably sit all day Sunday and watch any Premier League game and WSL game that's on TV, regardless if it's Burnley versus whoever. But I think in the WSL you get that even more because people want to watch Lauren James and Chloe Kelly and Beth England, and there's
struggle to watch Chloe Kelly at the moment, but
yeah, exactly. It's like they want everything at once, and then so you're trying to have to cater for that pattern, right?
Yeah, we have to test and learn too to figure out what's doable in the constraints that in the, I'd say, complex ecosystem that we have to operate in, and take feedback. And I think as an evolving business, we're still trying to figure out what are the fans saying, what's working, what's not working. If we're picking a slot that then has declining attendances, the fans can't get to, it's not driving viewership, then obviously we have to review that. At the moment, we're seeing the numbers are pretty good. There's some challenges on certain things, but I also think if we test it and try it for a season, what does that tell us? And then, we constantly have to review what worked, what didn't work, and evolve and shift going forward.
Expansion was a big topic earlier this year,
Yep.
and then the league sort of settled on what the new pyramid will look like, playoffs this season, and then we'll move to an expanded league. But what was the theory behind and why did it eventually sort of fall down around what was reported around the potential expansion and potential pause of relegation that ended up being adapted to what we're seeing now?
I think like anything, it's testing different theories, hypotheses, scenarios, and strategy. And so we did a massive consultation process. So I have a slide that has all of the various meetings we had with all of the different stakeholders across the entire game, 50, 60 meetings, plus all the work that goes on behind it to analyze pros and cons of every potential scenario. What is best for the game? Would that scenario of a pause in relegation drive more investment? ? And I think the feedback that we got was the clubs and the game and all of the stakeholders, whether it was fans, managers, whoever else, the FA, UEFA, our team, making sure that what we need to do is continue to drive investment in the game and also create a more investable proposition for clubs. And also, someone said to me too, people need to feel hope. You need to feel hope that you can get into a WSL. That is something to strive for, that there's ambition to want to get there. And I still think we're trying to, as the game grows, both its fan base and then financially, how many clubs really have the ambition to want to do that in the either third tier, now the second tier, and then obviously what it will take to be a WSL team. So I think the expansion is showing interesting things this season. I think the other thing we talked about a lot was also player welfare. So in a small league where all the points matter, do you get the squad rotation? Are younger players getting the opportunities to play? Is it developing what we need it to develop? So I think, and then we also have constraints of the calendar, which is challenging. So there's only so much we can do with the weekends that are available based on the international match calendar and the Champions League. And also we have a special share with the FA, which was also part of the negotiation. We have to have a 2-week mid-season break for player welfare over, and right now that's over Christmas. And so 14 is what we can do right now. That's the maximum we can do in the current format. And I think you're seeing the opportunity. You're seeing more clubs invest, I think. I think you're also seeing a real, in the WSL 2, that's so competitive and it's exciting to watch. I think the playoff will be really exciting, and I'm curious to see how that'll really come to life and how we can drive narrative around that. And is that an opportunity for more people to come into the game and then stay in the game? So that became the best option based on all of the analysis and all of the discussion.
Something that's been a hot topic of conversation over the past week or so, because it happened in a game against Arsenal and Chelsea, so therefore it becomes the main narrative, is VAR. And there's, for many years now, even before WSL Football's existence, there'd been the talk about when will VAR come in the WSL. Obviously they have it in Serie A, they have it in NWSL, and they have it in Liga F. What is the current timeline for VAR coming in the WSL, if at all?
I would potentially rephrase the question, is that I think we need to develop the referees first and the pool of referees that we have in the people. A lot of them, most of them are still part-time. And so when we think about the development, making that a full-time career, the education, the training, how many years do you need to have before you become a WSL referee? We have Rebecca Welch, who's now running. She's been in the post a year. There's a strategy that we're working behind. And also as a league, this past year has been one of our commitments. We've invested more in referee development through PGMO than we ever have before. And so I think that's the starting point. Do we have the right pool of people? Are they getting the right support? Are we watching the, KMIs, what that percentage is? So we don't have it enough yet this season to see what it is. But when you compare the key match incident reports, the KMI percentage, last year it was 87%. The year before it was 84%. So refs are getting 87% of the calls correct. From a technology perspective, we're reviewing kind of everything and the cost of that and what it would look like. But we need to have the refs developed enough to make sure that if technology comes in, it makes it better versus worse, or it just creates the same situation. From a VAR perspective, the other challenge we have is obviously the disparity in stadiums that we have. And so the capital cost to make every single stadium VAR compliant is significant. And then it would probably cost the league $2.5 to $3 million to run VAR annually. And so we are reviewing everything at the moment and trying to both make sure that the people are developed and supported properly, and then figure out what's the right technology and whether it's VAR light. Is it VAR over time? Is there a new technology that actually hasn't been explored, and we should be the pioneers in that technology that enhances broadcast, for example? So we are reviewing everything at the moment and trying to make sure we're making the right decision at the right time.
I think something I've been struck by across this conversation is the challenge in terms of the variety of stakeholders, whether that's, Gilly talking about how players might prefer a 12 o'clock kickoff but fans don't, or, equally thinking about different fan constituencies, like, in the past, like when you've made comments around women's football being like Glastonbury and talking about Taylor Swift friendship bracelets. That's obviously something that I think grinds some people's gears, but I also understand the concept of person you're also referring to. And, we've also this week had kind of Sky Sports dipping their toe into, this idea of maybe there's this pool of people who might be able to be reached within sport, within women's sport, that's quite different from maybe the traditional fan base or the fan base as it exists now. How do you go about balancing all that stuff, right? Because, if you want to talk, say, about Taylor Swiftification or something like that, that's talking to or about one set of fans, and it's natural therefore that maybe people feel like, well, that doesn't include me. But it's also hard for you, right, to like list off every chunk of fan if you're talking about how you want to reach people. So how do you approach that when you are building this league out?
Listening and reflecting. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, women's football should be for everybody. Like we should be inviting everybody into the game. And the spectrum, though, of what we're seeing. So when we look, we did a really extensive piece of work, qualitative work on fans. So we did 158 hours of interviews across the country from the ages of 10 all the way to the age of 65. And what we learned is that everyone has a different relationship to football. And so we have the demographics of the segmentation that we have, but we also have, I think, insight as to how people are coming into the game and their relationship with football. And so there is a big group that has a really long history of football, or they've come in through the game, but their relationship with football is also through men's football. And so they have a different perspective of that. There's a big group of people that have come in through the Lionesses and have never watched men's football before. And they have there's about 1 in 3 are new to football. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is if they've come in through the Lionesses or they've gone to the Euros, they've had a great experience because it's been fun. It's just been a great time. And then when they're coming into our game, the disparity of fan experiences across the league is so different. And so they're either being like, actually, I'll stay, maybe I won't keep coming because it wasn't as great as I thought it would be. And it's up to the clubs, it's up to us to continue to enhance the fan experience, but we're trying to welcome everybody into the game. And I might not say all the right things all the right time.
I mean, none of us do. You should see what's in Jessy's Twitter mentions.
Yeah, we've all been cancelled.
But at the end of the day, it's football. And, it's these incredible athletes, this incredible sport. It's the emotion and the competition and the passion of that. That is what we want more people to feel. And that's ultimately, I suppose, what we're selling is this great sport that everyone should feel welcome to come into. And there's then we need to still have football 101 for some people who are still learning it. And then we need to have like the technical analysis. Like, I'm a paying subscriber, but like I'm learning a lot from reading what you guys write because I love the technical analysis. We need more of that. And we don't have enough of that. And we need to invest in there and find more and great voices and get more exposure and reach for that. We also need to have the football 101 that everyone feels like they can come in and find their group, their emotional connection, their friends or family or whatever that looks like, and their club or their player. And so there is a very wide range of what that looks like. But ultimately, no matter who you talk to, everyone says they want more, better content for what they need. And I would say that's how we're thinking through the strategy.
Before we wrap up, because I know you've got places to be, what's the league's policy around AI? Because a lot of fans, and as lots of leagues and clubs are having to sort of manage, whether it's things being written by ChatGPT, which is a big issue in our space, in the media circles, or other kind of AI materials and technology that people can use. Where does the kind of league stand on that in their output?
So in terms of like content output, I think we'd be looking at AI tools to help with processes in the background. So let's say player clipping or things that speed up process. The storytelling element, though, is human curation. Without that, I just don't think it works. I think there might be a specific post that you're referring to that actually wasn't AI. We work with a number of designers and fans who come in, and a lot of the creative that you see certainly on the Barclays WSL social channels is actually created by them. So that particular post was actually created by a fan who then people thought it was AI, and she received actually quite a bit of abuse. So we've had to manage that in the background, and I would say actually a little bit of leeway onto the abuse part. I actually think that's one of the most important things of our platform too, is how we look at that, because what we're seeing is whether it's some of our staff or the players themselves, they receive a significant more percent of abuse online with that. So we would be using AI tools to help actually mitigate abuse for the players and make sure that they also have tools from that perspective. And then we're having a lot of conversations with these companies and also with the government around the Online Safety Bill and the Online Safety Act, and with Meta and different companies around the nuances of abuse for female athletes, which is different and nuance versus male athlete. So I would say we're trying to use AI tools in the right way to gain efficiency, but there is a human curation to the storytelling and how that comes to life.
Yeah. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us on Kettle Press. I hope
Thank
you
you for
enjoyed
having
your
me.
debut,
Yeah.
your comfy time on the sofa, and hopefully get you on again soon.
I hope so. Thanks for having me.